must be false or something like that.
I mean,
I believe that's what it is. I'd have to double check, look it up.
It's the same kind of thing that that a racist might use, and I'm not accusing you of racism, but I'm just trying to point out why this argument necessarily isn't the best way to go. A racist might say, you know, look at these black criminals, and there are, anecdotally, black criminals. There are also white criminals, you know, and he would say, okay, I've got a big list of black criminals, and therefore black people are all terrible people.
Yeah, and it's a guilt by association fallacy too.
And similarly,
I'm not saying that because you carry on that legacy that you are necessarily a bad person. What I'm saying is, you think it would cause people, it would give people pause and start to think about, well, hey, you know, accept.
I think it's better to
oppression, and let me, you know, because I would have discussions and they would be like, well, that's true, but that's not what that Bible actually says, and then you get them to read it, and that is what it says to do.
Right. Okay. Now that I think is actually a better starting place, because there is bad stuff in the Bible, and then once they want to, you know, just sort of gloss over it, then we're in the territory of, oh, you don't really believe in the Bible. Where do you get your morals from? It's got nothing to do with the Bible.
Yeah.
That's fine. I just worry about, like, you know, overgeneralizing with a group to sort of paint them all with a bad brush.
No, because that's exactly what the Pope is doing right now.
And I was kind of like, more of the observation that I use is, or kind of think about this was, you know, I think people in general, really apply reason and logic into every single aspect of their life, because I think that it's kind of indicated in the fact that 90 to 95% have beliefs in a God or gods, and that I think that you can't say that you apply reason and logic to every single aspect of your life when you deny reason and logic when it comes to that particular instance, and that those people that don't that suspend reason and logic when they're coming to in regards to their religious beliefs, you can't really use reason and logic with them in refuting it, because they suspend reason and logic when it comes to that particular belief. And that I'm thinking, well, maybe it might be effective to kind of first appeal to emotional responses or social responses in that regard, and not only attacking the message, but kind of saying, well, look, examine the messengers as well.
Well, I mean, I don't know that fighting a bad and irrational set of beliefs with a bunch of emotional arguments and just the arguments that are just as bad is the best idea. I mean, certainly it may be a way to communicate with them, right. But I mean, you may be, in terms of if you're talking in their own language, kind of idea behind it. But I've been engaged just today with, there's been a guy who's been emailing us with some first cause arguments, and I've been responding to him and just pointing out every single place where he's using logical fallacies. And he just isn't getting it. And right. And not only that, I mean, he thinks that his logic is watertight, and it's impossible to make him see that he really hasn't provided any good epistemological grounds to accept his points of view.
I guess that's where my frustration lies in then, because I feel like, you know, sometimes you come across a piece and you feel like you're talking to a brick wall. I don't know how else to go about communicating, you know, all the different reasons. I mean, the only really reason is to use reason and logic, but I don't know how else to make them budge. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's just if you really are embroiled in some sort of conversation or discussion with a believer where they're desperately trying to convince you of their beliefs or something like that, I usually find that if you want to just get right to the core of it, ask them how they are able to distinguish their God from something that they may just be imagining. I mean, how do they know how do they justify this belief, other than through just emotional desire, faith, as Christians term it, or some other means. I mean, Christians will repeatedly assert, this is what I'm doing with the fellow who's been emailing me. I'm just trying to say, you have not provided me with any kind of roadmap, or you haven't explained to me how it is that you determine that the God you believe in is real and not just something you're imagining. How do you distinguish those two things? And he's not answering it. He's trying to evade it. He's trying to dodge it. He's trying to project all the flaws in his arguments onto me, but he's not addressing that very basic point. Now, so even when you do that, even when you come up with something like that, there's no guarantee that they'll respond to it or even know how to respond to it, but it is possible that you still might irritate them enough to make them think about it. And that's not, a waste of time, fully, I don't think.
And I guess, it's hard because I think we're asking, when you like debate science, so let's say if you take evolution, for example, and you're trying to explain reasons for the world or reasons for life in an evolutionary term, and you're fighting with, I took evolution in biology my freshman year for maybe half a semester. And you're going up against, 14, 15 years of indoctrination from the get-go, and it's kind of an uphill battle.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of independent reading you can do on the subject to equip yourself for those conversations other than just, outside of one semester of education. And second of all, how should I say this? The stuff that they're coming at, the stuff that they're coming at you with, they're trying to act as if their point of view has scientific credibility of some sort. And it really just doesn't. This is actually a case where going to the source and figuring out who's saying this stuff and how many people are saying this stuff actually makes some kind of sense. Because if they're going to claim that there is some kind of scientific justification for creationism, then they have to realize that basically there are very few scientists who will make any kind of scientific case for this stuff, and most of them outright dismiss it. On this particular area.
Well, another way that you can probably address this whole way in which believers compartmentalize, as you mentioned before, right?
Right.
Because they do that, right? The very same Christian who believes in God, who believes in Jesus, who believes that there's a realm of angels and demons, who believes that he's going to go to heaven when he dies, all of which are fairly irrational, I think, and unsupported beliefs that people hold for emotional reasons. Ask this very same Christian if he believes in the gods of any other religion. Or ask this very same Christian, give him some really ridiculous claim, like drinking Mountain Dew will turn you invisible.
I heard that one.
Right, and he'll be just as skeptical as anybody else. And so at that point, you can sort of bring up this dichotomy that appears to be going on in their heads. I had a Christian ask me on Facebook, basically, well, why don't you believe in God? And my answer was, for the same reason, probably for the same reason that you don't believe in the gods of every other religion other than your own.
Right.
And so ask yourself, well, why don't you believe in Shiva? Why don't you believe in Zeus? Why don't you believe in Ahura Mazda? Why don't you believe in all of the others? Yeah, Quetzalcoatl. Or, they have cooler names at least. So.
They certainly.
And once you figure that out, then
get a rational answer with that. But.
Right.
Yeah,
I think.
And you may get an irrational answer with that. And at that point, you can say, well, maybe their only reason for not believing in those gods is because the Bible says that the Christian God is the real one. Well, you can. But if that's your only reason, those other religions have holy books, and those holy books say that their gods are. So, how do you determine? See, this is how you get them to sort of think about how they know what they think they know.
Right.
And do they really know this stuff, or are they just pretending to know things?
Probably a better approach then.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for calling. I think we're going to have to move on to some other callers.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling, man.
See you later. Okay, next we're going to...
Hopefully Randy's still holding.
Yeah, Randy in Houston. Are you still there? Oh, maybe that is his phone.
It's like the revolution's broken out, and they're shooting. Doug, just get into the bunkers quickly. Yeah, it's not...
Let's see.
It's a zombie apocalypse. That's what it is.
Put him on hold and try him one more time.
Aim for the head.
Third time's the charm. We're going to drop him.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so Randy, you're still on hold for now.
Is this Johanna?
See if we can figure out what's wrong with your phone. And I guess Johanna in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Are you there?
Hi.
Hi. How you doing?
Hi, I'm actually a theist. I was introduced to the show by a agnostic friend of mine, and I had a video I put up recently on YouTube, very unusual proof of the existence of God.
I can almost guarantee you that we're not going to watch it.
Well, let him explain what it is, though.
All right, I'll go ahead and explain the concept. He doesn't agree with it outright because he has problems with it, but he thought it was a very unusual argument, and he wanted me to bring on the show to see what you guys thought about it.
Unusual arguments for God. All right, let's go.
Yeah. So I'm in physics, right? That's my major. Now, there's a guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, Roger Penrose. Have you heard of that name?
The Emperor's New Mind?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Road to
So
Reality.
you're familiar with the Orc-Or hypothesis, correct? The self-collapsing wave function?
Yeah, I actually kind of disagreed with a lot of the book that I was reading. I'm more of a Hofstadterian, but he's not a physicist. But I mean, I'm sort of a fan of the model of the mind that is discussed through a lot of essays in the mind's eye.
All right. Well, let's. And obviously, Penrose's thesis is very controversial, but let's just take it as true for sake of argument.
No.
Something very unusual comes out of it when you do this.
I'm sorry, but I mean, if we're going to build an argument on top of something that we're not sure is actually true or not.
Yeah, let's think of it as a
I'll make an argument.
Yeah, hypothetically. All right.
Yeah, let's think of his hypothesis is ...
Okay, so what are we assuming is true, first of all?
Okay, let's assume that the self-collapsing wave function mechanism is the same as consciousness, all right? Orchestrated objective reduction.
Okay, there's all kinds of fuzzy terms that are not going to be familiar to a bunch of people in the audience.
Yeah, we've got a bunch
starting with assuming that everyone knows what consciousness means.
Or self-collapsing wave functions, or
Should I explain the wave function concept?
What?
Yeah, if you want to, sure. I mean,
all right. So
if you want, sure.
Quantum wave function in quantum mechanics is where you have a particle when it's not observed, it exists in a set of possible positions all at once, and it's sort of mirrored out in a wave pattern.
Right.
And then once you observe the wave function, and I'm not going to, there's these idiots from What the Bleep Do We Know, which are, that's pseudoscience.
Yeah,
but,
horrible movie.
You can observe it either as a mind or an inanimate piece of measuring equipment. And when you do this, what happens is that the wave function collapses and the particle only shows up in one place at a time, okay?
Okay.
So now, whatever the mental observation is, when we observe, we look out at the outside world, we see stuff comes down in our eyes, right? And we can make an observation of it somehow.
Our senses, yeah.
Very fundamental interaction.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so now, whatever that is physically the same as whatever it is that happens when the inanimate piece of equipment measures the wave function, right? Now, I'm not a dualist, so I'm not going to assume that there's, a matter and a mind. They're two separate things. It's all the same thing. So you would agree that we do when we observe things mentally.
Wait. So you would agree then that mind is the sort of patterns that happen on brain waves, basically.
I'm a neutral monist, actually. I'm a little unusual with this, but yeah, mind is it's a entangled mechanism in the middle of the microtubules.
All right, I think we're pretty close in agreement so far.
Okay, so now the observation mechanism is the same thing that is, with the inanimate piece of equipment is the same mechanism that happens when an actual mind observes something. So now that being the case, wave function collapse can be physically equated with the process of mental observation. So now from that, if you have a self-observation, which is, we think of as consciousness, an ego or perhaps whatever, but when you have a self-observation, that would be a self-collapse of the wave function. Now, obviously, Penrose is very controversial. There's a whole lot of, people try and poke holes in various parts of it, but the gist of it is that you can then have a self-collapsing wave function, and that is equal to a self-observing wave function, which is therefore a mind, right?
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first part of the argument. The second part, now we're going to go step back a little bit, and we're going to go into, this is tied in with quantum gravity, but there's everything in the physical universe has wave functions, correct? You have anything that has energy has a wave function. Now, this includes the wave function of the whole universe.
So you've got, if I can clarify this some more for non-nerds, when you have subatomic particles, you can't